If you're looking for a beginner-friendly sewing pattern, this drawstring bag is made for you. Not only is this easy to make in an afternoon, but is also an awesome alternative to wrapping paper for this upcoming holiday season, and is a great option for gifts that might not be easily wrappable. Mine finished at around 17 by 19 inches tall, but you could totally mess around with the dimensions to make the size you like. If you guys are interested in a smaller version, let me know and I will make another video on that. So here's what you'll need. I used this piping cord on mine, but you could also use rope, ribbon, or fabric. You can find this in my Amazon storefront if you're interested in this specific cord. I cut two 40-inch long pieces of that. Then I have my exterior fabric. This is 18 by 16 inches. You will want to make sure that it is 18 inches wide if you're using directional fabric like I am, because otherwise it will end up sideways. And then you'll need two 18 by 5-inch accent fabrics. Again, the width is 18 inches if you're using directional fabric. And then for the lining, I have two 18 by 20.5-inch pieces of fabric for the inside. Once you have all your fabric cut, you can go ahead and take these two exterior pieces and place them right sides together. If using directional fabric, you will want to make sure you remember that the bottom is the seam here. So arrange your fabric like the seam is the bottom and that your prints will be facing opposite directions here. Then I went ahead and sewed these along that 18-inch edge with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Once you have sewn these together, go ahead and open them up. Now we're going to grab the two accent fabrics and attach them on the two edges of the 18-inch fabric. So we're really making this long strip here. So I rotated my two exterior pieces that are connected, and then I am placing the accent and one of the exteriors right sides facing each other. This is along both of the 18-inch edges, and you can pin in place. Take this to your machine and attach it with a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and then repeat the same exact thing on the opposite end. Once you've attached the two accent fabric strips, go ahead and open those up, and then now we're going to attach the two pieces of lining in the same exact way we just did with the accent strips. So take one of your lining pieces and place it right sides together with the accent and exterior fabric. Line up those 18-inch edges and sew this together with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Then rotate it and do it on the other end. Once you have attached all of these pieces together, it should be like a long strip like this, and I like to press my seams open. Next, we're going to fold this long strip in half, placing the right sides together. Fold right where that first original seam is. This is the bottom of your bag. Then line up all of the other edges. I'm going to be sewing around the three open edges here, so I like to use pins to put everything in place, especially where these seams are. You're going to want to make sure these match up, because this will show on the outside of your bag if they are not lined up. We are going to be sewing all three of the open edges shut, but before we do that, I go ahead and mark around a 3 to 4 inch opening at the top of the lining, or that 18-inch edge of your lining. Then we're also going to keep two other spots open. It will be where we will be putting our cord through. We want to find the halfway point on the short end of our accent fabric. This should be at about 2 1/4 inches. We want to leave an inch open. So I'm marking at about 1.75 to 2.75 from the edge of my accent fabric. Now it is time to sew around all three open sides. Be sure to backstitch near the three openings and not stitch through where we marked those 1-inch lines and then the 3-inch at the bottom of the bag. This is kind of what that should look like here. And now we need to box out our corners. I do this by taking the corner. If it is laying flat, it looks like this, and we're actually going to open it up and match up the seams on both sides. You should be able to kind of feel around. You can press them in alternating directions to make sure they're lining up well, and then make it as flat as you can. And then we're going to lay it down and measure 2.5 inches from the corner and draw a diagonal line. Carefully bring it over to your sewing machine, try to keep it flat, and then sew right along that line. And then we are going to trim it back a 1/4 inch from the seam to make this corner. And then you repeat this with all four corners. So you have the two interior fabric ones to do and the two exterior fabric ones to do. Same process for all four of them. Once you've done all four corners, it's time to turn this right side out. So go ahead and find that opening we left in the bottom of the lining and pull it through. This is probably my least favorite part. I don't like doing this with any project. Once you have it pulled through, you can go ahead and close up that opening by tucking in the raw edges about 1/4 inch and then top stitching really close to the edge. If you want a professional look, you could hand stitch it shut so that you can't see anything, but I just take it to my machine and do a quick stitch with a back stitch because this will be on the inside at the bottom of the bag. So how it looks doesn't really matter a lot to me. Then I put the lining on the inside of the bag, kind of shake it in there, and then I actually give the top a press where the accent fabric meets the lining, and then I'm going to do a top stitch right along the top about 1/8 of an inch from the edge just to keep that seam down and in place. The next step is putting our rope or cord or ribbon through. You're going to want to find where your 2 openings are on the opposite sides, and you're actually going to want to mark a horizontal line from the top of one opening to the top of the other opening and the bottom to the bottom on both sides. This was really easy for me because I used a striped accent fabric, so I actually just had to follow the stripe there. But otherwise, you can take a ruler, and I like to use a Hera marker here, especially because this fabric is going to be on the outside, and I don't really feel like having to try to get washable marker out. So I take a ruler, I find the top of that opening and the other top on the opposite end, and then mark a line from one side to the other and do the same with the bottom of the opening, and then flip the bag over on the other side and repeat the process again. Once you have those lines marked, go ahead and sew right along the line. Be sure that you're not sewing through both sides of the bag, that you're only going through the one layer of accent fabric and one layer of lining fabric, and you should be going around the entire bag in one continuous stitch, and then repeat the same thing with the other line that you marked. Just check it often to make sure that you're not sewing through more layers than you mean to. And this is what that should look like when you have finished this step. And your opening is right here, and this is where we're going to put our cord through. Like I said earlier, I used 2 40-inch pieces. I probably could have gone a little longer. I would maybe suggest 45. And then I used a safety pin to get this through the channel. Do as I say and not as I do, and tie a knot in your piping if that is what you're using, because I found out when I got through to the other end that mine had unraveled quite a bit, and you'll see that in a second. But I just use a safety pin and I work my way through the entire bag, even past the opening on the opposite end. You're going to want your cord to come in and out of the same hole. And then you just repeat this process with the opposite side. Once you have gotten it in and out of the hole, go ahead and tie the ends together like this. And then repeat on the other side, the same exact thing. And then if you're using piping or rope like me, you can use some clear nail polish or fray check to make sure that your edges don't fray too much. And that's it. That's how you make this drawstring bag. These are so fun.